And then on the flip side of that, we heard we have a statement, and some people, quite frankly, weren't familiar with it. And we weren't asking folks to repeat it to us verbatim, but we were trying to find out if people own this system. And I think there's still work to be done. People know about it. They know every learner is a champion. They know some of the taglines. They know pieces of the goals and the vision. But people don't own it yet. And that's okay because we're just beginning. We also heard while we have a superintendent that is visible and accessible, that maybe some of the other leaders in the district are not. And remember, when we talk about leaders, we're talking about leaders at all levels of the organization. It's central office leaders, cabinet members, and other leaders at central services. It's the building leaders. It could be teacher leaders. It could be custodial leaders. There's a real breakdown, and you'll see this later on the slides. There's still an us and them mentality that exists in the district. Remember last year when I was here, I talked about the Hill? We heard it minimally this year. We didn't hear the Hill. We heard central services and the schools. But there still is a divide that exists in the district. And as I was saying a minute ago, we've got a superintendent that's accessible. We've got cabinet members that we heard about from you all that aren't as, it's not just about being visible in your buildings. We had folks tell us, I wouldn't know a cabinet member if they walked by me. And so it's not just about being visible, but what we heard you say is we want them to come to our building so they know what's happening in my building, what's happening in my department. So that as decisions are made, they're not made in isolation. They're made with us, and they're made so that they support what's happening in my building. So that's an opportunity to get those folks more connected to what's going on in your building. The development of goals, I mentioned that to you. We've got a great start, but there's still, we're still at very different places with the goals. Some people knew about the goals. Some people could tell us the goals. Some people didn't even know we had goals. So we kind of covered the spectrum on that. We've got goal teams going on. Some of the goal teams that are further along than others, people are really proud of the work that's been done in those goal teams. Some of them are just getting started. Here's a concern, here's an opportunity. They're not aligned. Those goal teams are working in isolation instead of working across. And some of that may be because we're just getting started and trying to figure all that out. But that's an opportunity to make sure that we align those things and we're talking across those goal teams so that we can all go down the same path together. The other thing we heard about were the values and beliefs. Remember, another huge thing we heard last year was the whole trust issue. Every group we talked to, we heard that there was a lack of trust, mistrust. We heard it a lot. It hasn't completely gone away, but boy, has it improved. The values and core beliefs that have been created for this district, here again, we have an issue of not everyone knows them yet. And we have a modeling issue. Some folks are modeling those in a leadership position, some folks aren't. So we need to get everyone on the same page so that we can all walk together and model these. In fact, quite frankly, we heard, why should I have to model those things when we have leaders in our system that don't? So that's an opportunity that we need to face as an organization. Okay, let's talk about strategic planning. Last year, if you'll recall, when we came, there was not a strategic plan, not even a thought of one. We didn't really talk strategically. So this year, we have the 5 goals. We have what I'll refer to as a strategic planning placemat. And the reason I say that, it's a 1-page that has goals that are to drive the organization strategically. It's a beginning. It's a great beginning, but there's still work to be done on the strategic plan. Now we have to have some action plans to support that so that we know what the work is that's going to help us accomplish those strategic goals. So when we looked at plans, again, we had the strategic placemat, but the conversation around the plans that do exist across the system, mostly those are the school improvement plans. But even those plans are more focused. And again, we had the gamut on this. Here's the opportunity. We're all over the place with those plans. Some folks are they're living documents. They use those plans. They said they're never finished. We're constantly updating them. We're constantly looking at those. And they really do drive the work in our school. 2, may I see your strategic plan, and the person not even being able to put their hands on it. So to the compliance end of the scale. So we've got different, people are using them differently. We did hear that there's a new process. People are excited about being able to tie their plan to the overall district plan. And oh, by the way, so maybe I can have some goals as an individual. So when I have a performance evaluation, that performance evaluation will be meaningful, and we'll share so that everything's aligned and linked. So we're all working for the same thing and having meaningful conversations and the same kind of conversations. We're not just working in silos like we have for a long time. The staff, the support from central office, we heard things like they never come in our buildings. They're making decisions about what happens in our buildings, but we don't have input to that. And how could they possibly know what's happening here because we never see them here? And again, remember I said to you earlier, it's not just being visible in those buildings or knowing who these folks are, but coming and learning what's going on in that individual building. And as we all know, each building has a little bit different personality. So there's a real desire for folks to understand what's happening in their buildings, so when decisions are made, people can feel good about them. Okay? And then a communication plan. We've got the beginnings of our strategic plan. There needs to be a strategic communication attached to that. We've got one in draft form, and as we all have talked, I see a lot of familiar faces in here. As we all talked over the last few days, communication is an issue in this district. It's a huge issue, and I'll share some more things in a minute with you about that. The curriculum and teaching, big strength. Resources are following the schools that have the greatest needs, and I'm talking specifically about focus schools. People were appreciative that they had the staff, the resources to support them in trying to bring their schools up. Okay? And then the use of data. Again, we have probably the entire spectrum of how it's being used, but the fact is it's being used to support a lot of the students in this district. And that's positive. We're making decisions on interventions. We're making decisions. We're sitting down talking to other folks in our building, talking about instructional strategies. So we're using data, and that's not to say everyone is, But there are a lot of people using data to make good decisions about the students that they serve.